If you're an aspiring data analyst, you may be asking yourselves, what does a typical project look like as a data analyst? What does a typical day look like as a data analyst? Well, in short, every data analyst project and position is different. But today we'll look at some common types of projects that you might get as a data analyst. This can help you know what to expect when you finally get that data analyst role you've been working toward. With that said, let's head over to our PowerPoint. Regardless of what type of organization you work for, there are different types of analytics projects that you might work on. The first type is building a report or a dashboard, especially an interactive dashboard, but some are still done in Excel. And there are some roles, such as a reporting analyst, where they spend 100% of their time on building and maintaining reports and dashboards. One of the benefits of building dashboards, one of the things I enjoy about it, is it can be fun to build aesthetically pleasing dashboards. It's one of the closest things to being an artist that an analyst gets to do. The other thing that's nice about this, even if you're a data scientist, is that dashboards can be implementation vehicles for an analytical project. You can't just build a model and give your code to a salesperson. You've got to deliver it to them somehow, and taking the resulting scores from your model and putting them into some kind of an interactive visualization tool that a salesperson could interact with is a great way to implement your model. Another type of project an analyst might work on is a simple ad hoc data pull. Now, it can be gratifying occasionally to help satisfy an immediate need of a stakeholder, especially someone who really wants to help people. However, if you get too many of these too often, it can be monotonous to do this. And so I would recommend that if you get a recurring request for ad hoc data, then it's probably time to build an interactive visualization tool where the stakeholder or stakeholders can go themselves and pull that data. Another type of project is performing ad hoc analysis. One thing that I like about ad hoc analysis, it's not always the most technical or challenging, although it can be. Sometimes there's a fine line between ad hoc analysis and a model build. They can go together in some cases. But even if it's not a advanced data science model that you're building and it's not as advanced of an analysis, usually that ad hoc analysis is being done to tackle an immediate challenge that it can benefit right away. So it can, again, can be gratifying to see an immediate impact that your analysis has. We need this analysis done in 2 or 3 days so that we can make this decision, versus models, they don't have to, but often do, take months to build and implement. And so you don't get to see the fruit or benefit quite as quickly. And that brings us to our last type of project, which is building a data science model. Now, going back to the roles, sometimes a organization will assign the building of the modeling data set to a data engineer role, and the building of the model and the testing of the model to a data scientist role. In other cases, the data scientist does all of that. And they don't use the term data engineer at those organizations. This often involves applying advanced techniques to accomplish some pretty impressive feats, predicting things or explaining things. It's really pretty neat to be able to do that. And it does require oftentimes some sophisticated models, but you don't have to be a math major to do this stuff. Now, the downside, again, as I said, it doesn't have to be this way, but oftentimes it is this way. It can take a long time to implement this. Now, in terms of all these projects, you can see that there are certain times where a reporting analyst would work on the dashboards, an analyst would do the ad hoc data pulls and the ad hoc analysis, and then a data engineer and a data scientist would work on the models. But every team is different. Some analytics roles and teams specialize in one or a few of these. We're the data science team, we're the reporting team, we're the analytics team. Well, other roles span all of them. And there are some projects that, whether it's one analyst working on all the parts or a divide and conquer, a team approach, they require a little bit of both. Imagine a project where a data science model needs to be built. We talked about how it could be implemented in an interactive visualization tool. And then perhaps there's an ad hoc analysis, maybe an A/B test that needs to be conducted to see if that model is better than the old model or system that the team was using. So in a lot of projects, multiple forms of these analysis techniques can be used. Keep that in mind. Now, again, there can also be roles that you get to work on a variety of these. Some days, some weeks, you're working on dashboards. Other times, you're doing ad hoc analysis, and sometimes you're building models. I've found that a lot of analysts actually enjoy the variety of projects that comes with a role like that, although there certainly are some that prefer to specialize in reporting or data science. Let's take a look at a typical day or a typical project for an analyst. In one case, a stakeholder might reach out and they might require a simple ad hoc data pool, like we were talking about in the last slide. And in that case, especially at a level 2 or 3 analytics maturity organization, they may perhaps write a SQL query to pull the data from the database and simply copy the results, the resulting data, into an Excel workbook. And a recommended thing to do is to also create a tab in the workbook, name the tab SQL, and put your code there. Just in case you ever need to pull the same thing again, the code will be very convenient right there for you or someone else that it gets forwarded to. So you'd put together that Excel workbook and then you'd email it back to the stakeholder. That's a very common process for satisfying an ad hoc data request. Now, in other cases, you might have a stakeholder that needs some kind of a model build. And your first step, or again, it could be a data engineer you're working with, would be writing a SQL query to build that modeling data set. You could be embedding that SQL query directly in a Python job, pulls the data into a data frame or a data table, and ultimately builds a model in Python, tests it out, gets comfortable with it, and then rolls it out in an interactive visualization platform like Power BI, at which point the stakeholder can view the scores that your model has created. And in some cases, you could even use that Power BI dashboard or interactive visualization to present the insights from the model. Again, this is an example of how multiple techniques come together for a single request. At the end of the day, we're trying to satisfy and solve business challenges, and we will use whatever technique makes sense for the situation, in some cases combining them together, as in the second example here. If you like this video, I hope you'll consider liking it formally. And if you'd like to see more analytics, data science, and leadership training videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Finally, if you have any questions on what we discussed today, please leave a comment and I'll try to respond to it as soon as possible. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.